It's time for another episode of Pico-8pril. Today we're going to be learning about conditionals. Hey everybody, it's Chris from FamilyGeekery, and welcome to episode 6 of Pico-8pril. We're going to be learning coding techniques by using Pico-8, and today we're going to be learning about conditional statements. But before we get into that, let's look at the challenge from last week. So last episode we had you do this as a challenge. And this one we used what we learned last week about creating functions. And I gave you basically the square function, and this will make a square. And I said you guys need to make a checker function, which is basically going to make 9 of these squares. And just 3 different instances of it, with 3 different starting locations, 3 different sizes, and then 3 different color combinations. So if you look again at what I've got there, I've got 3 different checkerboards, 3 different color combinations, and 3 different sizes. So how I went about and did this, it's a lot of just math, really, but it is a little bit easier than what it would have been if we didn't create the square function and if we didn't create the checker function. So we know the square function from back here basically takes your starting location and a width and then a color. Actually, it's down here. Starting location, a width, and a color. And it does the math to figure out how to create that square. And here, we're just using that square function 9 times to make the 9 squares of your checkerboard. And we're starting at the very top left at the starting location with the width and the color, the first color. And that's the easy one. And then going from there, it's just a matter of adding on to your starting location to offset each of the next 8 squares from that original square. So you can see I'd got an X plus the width, which is going to be the full size of the square, but then plus 1 to get our next square to not overlap the first square. And then as we go again, it's X plus W plus 1, and then plus another W plus 1 to put that third square on there. And you can see the first 3 squares were all in the same row. So the same row had the same Y location on all 3. So Y was unchanged. And then, of course, we're going to alternate the color throughout all of them. As we continue down, we're going to, on the next 3 squares, we're going to add Y plus W plus 1 for your Y location, and then we're going to offset the X 3 times. And then finally on the last row, we're going to have a Y plus 1 plus 1, and then we're going to offset the X plus W plus 1, X plus W plus 1 plus W plus 1. So I know it's a little funny looking, but if you just noodle it out a little bit or draw it out on some graph paper or on some notebook paper or something, then you can figure this out. Just like everything else, we're going to figure out an easier way to do this as we go, but we're going to put this aside for now, and we're going to get into this episode on conditionals. Now, let's start with a clean slate and reboot the Pico-8 and start from scratch, because we're going to be learning conditionals, and conditionals is really just a fancy word for something that we know and we do every single day. So sometimes these are called conditional statements, conditional commands. Sometimes they're called if-then statements. And really, it's think about anything that you do in life where you make a decision, if this, then that. And that's all we're going to be doing with our programming. If this happens, do that. If this doesn't happen, do that. So in real life, we do it every single day. If I'm hungry, go to the fridge and find some food. If you like these videos, click that like button. Haha, see what I did there? But yeah, we're going to be working with if statements. And once we start combining this with other things we learned, we can really start programming a lot. So let's start off in our editor and start off with our functions. We're just going to create our 3 main functions again. The init, the update, and the draw. So even with this, we're going to start using what we learned last episode and start cleaning up our code a little bit by using customized functions. So let's say that I've got this donut store that we've been building. We've been making donuts with graphics. And now I want to start selling them at the donut store. So the donut store is only going to be open if it's open. So people can only buy donuts if the store is open. So let's start off with a function to figure that out. And we're going to start off with a function that we're going to create ourselves. That's just simply called isOpen. So we're going to have some kind of a way of checking to see if it's open and then put something on the screen depending on if it is. So we're going to start off with, up in our init here, just a variable called store is open. And again, I wouldn't use crazy long variables like this in real life, but it just makes it easier to read for these videos. So store is open. We're going to make that a Boolean, so they can either be true or false. So we're going to start off with true. So we've defined that at the beginning of the program, and now we're going to use that down here. So we're going to do just one of those if-then statements that we've been talking about, and it's just simply done like this. If store is open equals true. And you can see I put 2 equal signs there, and that's important. Up top here, I used 1 equal sign because I am assigning this value of true to this variable. Down here, if you're checking, then you use 2 equal signs to check, is this equal to this value here? So we're not assigning a value, we're checking it. So if store is open equals true, then, and you can see that word then just turned pink, and if you don't put that in there, you will get an error. And then at this point, I like to put my end in there, and I think we showed a shortcut last episode where you can hit shift and hit enter, and it will add that end for you. So now anything in between that if statement and the end right here, this is going to happen if this condition is met. And that's why this is called a conditional statement or a conditional command. If this condition is met, do all the stuff in here. So do this stuff. So what do we want to do? We want to print the store is open. So if the store is open equals true, then print the store is open. So now that we've got our custom function here, we can test it out. Let's go up into the draw function first and make sure we clear the screen out. And if we go ahead and test this out, we've cleared the screen, but nothing's happening, nothing printed on the screen. And that's because we created the function, but we're not calling it anywhere. So let's go ahead and call it right after we clear the screen. And remember, we call a function by just typing in the name of the function, is open, close parentheses, and we're not using passing any kind of variable in here, so we don't need to put anything in here. It's just simply saying, hey, when I get to this point, go down here and run this whole function, and then jump right back here. So now when we test, we get the store is open. So let's go ahead and back in here and change our store is open to false and see what happens. So now when we rerun it, nothing happens at all. Well, that's not a good feeling. Have you ever gone to a store and you didn't know if it was open or closed? Maybe they weren't answering the phone and you drive all the way there and they're not open. We want some way to actually tell the people that it's not open. So what we could do is down here in our function, we could do another if statement. If store is open equals false, then now we're going to do this stuff and here. So let's just go ahead and copy this line down here. And we'll change the open to closed. So now when we run this is open function, and that's going to happen every time the draw function happens. If the store is open is true, it's going to print this. If the store is open is false, it's going to print this. So now when we run it, it says the store is closed, and that's because we defined up at the very top that the store is open is false. Now this completely works, but there's a better way to do this instead of using two if statements. And sometimes there's a reason for using two if statements and sometimes there's not. But really what we can do here, there's only two options, right? The store is either open or it's not. And if there's only two options, the easier way to do this is instead of checking if it's open and doing this and then stopping and then checking if it's closed and doing this and then stopping, why don't we just say if the store is open, true, print the store is open, else, which means if this first thing wasn't true, then we'll do this. So in the else, we can actually take this part and put it right in here, and we can get rid of the second if statement. So if the store is open is true, do this stuff. If it's not, this is just a short way of saying if this isn't true, then do this. Now this works simply because we've only got two conditions, true or false. So if you're using a conditional statement on a Boolean, then this is probably the best way to do it. So now when we run, it still works. The store is closed. And we only have one if statement now. Now, sometimes you have more than two conditions, right? You might have something that's more than just true or false. And there's better ways to do that. So now we've got our is open statement. Well, the store can be open, but if we don't have any donuts to sell, then it's not worth being open, right? So we need to find out also if we have any stock. So let's make another function now called has stock. And let's see what we can do in there. So we're going to check to see if the donut has enough stock to actually open and sell stuff. So let's go ahead and put our amount of donuts up here. We'll just define our donuts as being equal to 10. So we've got 10 donuts in the store right now. So in this function here, has stock, which let's go ahead and call that so we don't forget that. Let's figure out what we want to do in here. So we're going to tell the people if the store is open or closed, and then we're going to tell the people on the screen if they have donuts or not. So let's say if donuts is greater than 30, don't forget your then. And at this point, we're going to print we have lots of donuts. So now that people know, hey, there's lots of donuts here. Come on in, we're open. So we've just got the if, and we didn't finish the statement with an end yet. But what we're going to do is put an else statement here and say we are out of donuts. And now we can put our end statement in there. So if we have more than 30 donuts, say we got lots of donuts. Otherwise, print we are out of donuts. Well, what happens if they have more than 0 and less than 30? They still have donuts. So this isn't exactly true yet. Because right now, if we run it, it says we are out of donuts. Even though we told up in the init that we have 10 donuts. So let's add another condition in here before the else, because the else is just if everything else has happened and it hasn't met any of the conditions yet, go ahead and do this. So let's go ahead and put if or else if, and that means the same thing as else, but give me another condition. So if this isn't true, we're going to check this now. Else if donuts is greater than 0. So if we do have some donuts, but we don't have 30 donuts yet, we have some donuts, then do this. So we'll say print, we have some donuts. And you've probably seen this if you've gone onto maybe a Walmart website and checked stock on some item that you want to go buy, and it may say we have limited stock. It just means, hey, we don't have a whole bunch of them, so you better hurry up and get in here. So now if donuts is greater than 30, print we have lots of donuts. Otherwise, if donuts is greater than 0, so it would have to be somewhere between 0 and 30, say we have some donuts, and then otherwise we are out of donuts. And the only way it could get here is if it was not greater than 30 and not greater than 0, which would have to be at that point 0 or some negative number. And I don't want to think about a world that would have negative donuts. So let's go ahead and run this statement now. We'll run this program now. Uh-oh, I forgot a then statement. See, told you would get an error if you forgot your then. So after any kind of if, whether it's an else if or a regular if, you need to have that then. So now the store is closed. We have some donuts. Let's go ahead and change that up here to true again to make it make more sense. The store is open and we have some donuts. And now you can see if we change our donuts to 100, the store is open. We have lots of donuts. And if we change it to 0, the store is open and we are out of donuts. So that's not a good thing. So this is using is open is using just a regular if, else, end. And this one here, the has stock function, is using an if, else if, and else. And you could make this else if as many times as you want. So you only have one if and you only have one else, but in the middle you could have several else ifs. So you could have it greater than 0, greater than 5, greater than 10, and you can do different things. Maybe it's going to change the color of the text every time it goes through a different condition. But what's really going to happen is only one of these conditions is going to be true. So that's the best way to make a conditional statement. Don't make it so that multiple of these are going to be true, because only the first one that hits true is going to happen, and then it's going to jump to the end. So make it so that only each of these conditions, only one of them holds true, and then that's going to be proper. All right, so we've got the store is open, and the store has donuts. So now the next thing we're going to figure out is, instead of just having a simple equal sign or greater sign, it could be a less than sign. If you wanted this to be greater than or equal to 30, then that's how you write that. Because at this point, if we made the number of donuts exactly 30, it's going to say we have some donuts, because it's greater than 0, but it's not greater than 30. So if we wanted it really to be, if they have 30 donuts, greater than or equal to 30, now it's going to say we have lots of donuts. And there's several different ways we can do this: greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, just regular equal to. And we can even use a not, but that would be further on in this course. So let's look at one more function that we're just going to call store status. And this function is going to kind of summarize some things for our customers. And we want to just simplify it by saying, hey, if the store is open and there's more than 30 donuts, we're going to tell them just to come on in. If their store is closed, we want them to not come in, obviously. And if the store is open but they don't have enough donuts to sell, then we want them to not come in also, because it's not worth going into the donut store if they don't have any donuts to buy. So we're going to now check two different conditions. We want to make sure that there is donuts, or the store is open and there is donuts to sell. So let's look at this one. And before we do that, let's go ahead and take this function and call it here. And I'm going to go ahead and comment out these other two, since this one is going to kind of summarize everything for us. So in this one, we want to check two things. We want to check if store is open, and we can say equals true like we did before, but really, if you just say if store is open, and if this is a Boolean, you can just put if store is open, and it's going to check to see if this Boolean is true. So it's going to, if it's true, if it's defined as true, then this is going to happen. This if is going to happen. If it's false, then it's not. So it's just a shorter way of putting if a Boolean is true or if a Boolean is false. So if store is open, and we have to see how many donuts they have. So let's use and donuts is greater than 0, then, so now we're going to do it then. So now everything in between this if and this and are going to happen. So we're going to print the store is ready for business. Come on in. So right now we've got it's open, and where are we at here? We got 30 donuts. So both of these conditions should hold true. So let's test it out. The store is ready for business. So how this works is when you put an and in, both of these conditions have to be true. If either one of them is not true, then the and does not work. So let's go ahead and test that and make the donuts 0. It's not putting anything up on the screen, so we knew that worked. But maybe we have donuts and the store isn't open, so it doesn't tell us it's ready for business either. So like I said before, we don't want just a blank screen. So let's go ahead and put some other condition in here. So instead of just ending it after that, we're going to put else. Come back later. Don't forget your quotes. Come back later. So now, let's close the store again and test it out. Come back later. And that's because one of these two conditions, or both of them, in fact, could be not true. If either one of them is true, then it's not going to happen. So that's the benefit of having an and. The other way of doing that, if you didn't have an and, would be nesting your if statements, which I'm not going to fully flesh out, but you would have if this, then, and then you would come in here and do if this, then, and then you would end this one, and then you would end this one. So this would be your first condition. The store is open, and it's only going to get to this one if that's true, and then it's going to check for the donuts greater than 0, and then if that's true, then, come on in. We got donuts. So you can do it this way. It's a little bit better, a little bit easier just to combine these together. And you can combine together as many as you want. You can make it really difficultly hard to read. but you can combine together several things with ifs or with ands. So let's figure out one more thing here. We're going to use a or statement instead of an and. So let's go ahead and open our store back up. And we got 30 donuts, but maybe they're not all the right kinds of donuts. So we want to see if we have any donuts. So let's go ahead and put this any donuts custom function in here. And we'll go ahead and comment out this one. So now we're going to keep track of multiple different types of donuts. Let's say we have 5 glazed donuts and 0 sprinkled donuts. So now we're itemizing the types of donuts that we have. So let's see what we can do with an or statement. So let's start off with if glazed is greater than 0 or sprinkles is greater than 0, then what are we going to do? We're just going to print we have donuts. So they may not be the right kind of donuts, but we do have donuts. So this any donuts that we're calling right here in the draw is just going to check, do we have any glazed or any sprinkles? So we see up here we've got 5 glazed donuts and 0 sprinkled donuts. So in this case, when we run it, it says we have donuts because they do, right? We have donuts. They may not be the ones that you want, but we do have glazed donuts. If we make this glaze 0, then it's going to print nothing. So let's go ahead and fix that and say else we are out of donuts. So now when we have 0 glazed and 0 sprinkles, we are out of donuts. But as long as we take and have at least one donut, and it doesn't matter which one, let's go back in the back and make 1 sprinkled donut. And now it says we have donuts. I guess the right thing to do would say we have donut. So we could make another condition in here if we only have 1 donut, but we're not going to worry about that. So the or combiner here means that if this is true or this is true, then go ahead and do something. And if it's not, then do something else. So the and, they both have to be true. The or, either one has to be true. And you're going to use both of these a lot because sometimes when you're testing multiple things happening in your game or your program at the same time, then you need to check, hey, is this happening and this happening? Okay, let's do this. And then you can start stacking the else if statements in there that if only one of them is happening, then do this. If the other one is happening, do that. But if they're both happening, do this. So think about even like if you're using controls on a keyboard. If you push the up button, make the person walk up. If you push the left button, make the person walk left. But if they hit the up and the left button, then you want them to walk diagonally. So you would have multiple conditions for all those different scenarios. So that's how you use conditional statements. These are really just simplified versions of them, but I hope they did make sense. You're really just checking some condition, and if it's true, do something. If it's not, do something else. And you can have as many, like I said, as many else ifs in there as you want to check all kinds of conditions, all within one function or one if statement. So pretty nifty, huh? Now, it's time to take what we've learned here, and it's time to get a challenge. All right, for this week's challenge, you're going to use what you learned this week about conditional statements, about if, then, else if, all that stuff. And we're going to do something similar to our donut shop, but now we're going to have a zoo with a zebra in it. All right, so come see the zebra. So let's take a look at what we've got here. I've got an init function with 2 booleans. That's what you're going to start with. Zebra equals true basically means that the zebra is in the zebra pen. Zebra awake equals true means that the zebra is awake. So you're going to create for this challenge a function called check zebras, which I have on this tab here. You're going to clear the screen and then just run this check zebras. And actually this would be smarter if we put it down in the draw. So you're going to check the zebras, and based on these 2 conditions here, you're going to have different things show up. So if the zebra is in the pen and the zebra is awake, then yeah, come see the zebra. Tell everybody to come see the zebra. If the zebra is in the pen but the zebra is not awake, I want you to put up there, don't wake the zebra. Now, if the zebra is awake, but he's not in the pen, then I want you to put the zebra is taking a walk, hopefully somewhere safe and not in with the crowd. And then the last one, if both of these are false, so it's not in the pen and it's not awake, well, there's only one thing it can be doing, and that zebra is sleepwalking. So using the 4 combinations of these 2 booleans, true, 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 false, false, true, and false, false, have a function that will check those and print those 4 different statements accordingly. So have fun with that. I think you've got all the skills that you need to make that happen. If you need to rewatch parts of this video, then rewind back and see how we did some of the else ifs and how we checked with the ands and the ors. So have fun with that. If you have any questions along the way, of course, you can always type those down in the comments below. But that is going to wrap up this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Else, still give it a thumbs up. But if you want to see more of this stuff, we are getting towards the end of April, but I think we've got another episode coming up at the beginning of next week, Monday, and we're going to be covering a very important concept, so make sure you do not miss that next episode. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. But thank you as always for watching. Hope you're having fun, and until next time, peace out and geek out.